Welcome to the Super Fantasy Bros podcast, which is part of the Triple Play Fantasy Network. I am one half of the team, Kevin Coleman, and I am joined on the podcast by my co-host, Jacob Dunn. Jacob, how you feeling? Training camp is buzzing out there in Colorado. How's everything going?
Fantastic, my man. Yeah, out here in Denver, they gave Drew Lock the first snap in training camp. Now that doesn't mean too much to me, but at least Coach Fangio is giving Lock the benefit of the doubt and letting him prove why he should be the QB1 here. But yeah, other than that, I mean, training camp is here. Football, it seems so quickly around the corner. I think there's about 44 days left, so I'm pumped, brother.
I'm excited. I always get excited around this time. Training camp, we got news, notes, you got all this stuff. I love seeing Gallup today. I'm glad he's healthy, but you see CD catches, like everything about this time. This is why we love football. We're starting to get into that. And so with that being said, on today's show, we're covering recent news from around the NFL. A little bit older news and then some newer news, rookie quarterbacks and when we think they might start, where their schedules are at, who we buying, who we selling at the quarterback class. And then we're going to be going over some listener questions if we have time. So, hey, without further ado, let's jump into this bad boy because football season is here and we are pumped to go. Here we go. So we got to cover this because this has been I appreciate Aaron Rodgers. Shout out to you giving us content for the last 2 months because without you, I don't know what the hell we would talk about.
Yes.
But he's back. He showed up all decked out today, and he's here. He showed up for camp. He's going to get Randall Cobb maybe and coming back and his best friend. So Besties United, last dance. What are your initial thoughts? Rodgers coming back, fantasy implications, everything's right in the world now?
Well, you guys hear that sound? That's the sound of Green Bay fans and fantasy managers all letting out a sigh of relief. All right, Rodgers shoots right back up to quarterback 6 for me, right behind Dak Prescott and right in front of Justin Herbert and Russell Wilson. Davante Adams shoots right back up to wide receiver 1 overall. Aaron Jones moves right at the top of my RB2 tier list. Robert Tonyan turns into undraftable for me, into a top 10 tight end. And every single Green Bay wideout on the roster suddenly has best ball appeal. It's crazy how one quarterback can quickly change the landscape of fantasy football, but that's the power of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, he's here. Everybody can, and like you said, people can breathe a sigh of relief, especially Davante Adams, like dynasty owners. Yes. You guys should be happy. He's in there. He's ready to go. This is going to be a big year for them, and they're going to come back with a vengeance. Like, there's a real thing where they're going to come out and play. They're going to go for it right now. This is their Super Bowl year. They want to win it. I think it's great. I never really thought he was going to not come back. I just thought that they're going to have to secede to him a little bit. And it sounds like the management has kind of given into him a little bit. Maybe Randall Cobb's coming back. I did see a joke, like, are you going to go pick up Randall Cobb? I'm probably not touching Randall Cobb in Dynasty and those type of things. I do think this hurts Amari Rodgers a little bit. So if we're talking about rookies that this may impact, Amari not having that, if Cobb is there, that's going to be a real thing. And so that's something that we have to be concerned about, especially if you thought maybe he could contribute this year. But other than that, I mean, I'm excited to have him back, and I'm looking forward to that. And, like you said, Davante's there. I think that's big. I love it for Aaron Jones, though. I was a little worried as a Jones owner. I was getting a little worried that Jordan was going to be there. But I will say, I did do a YouTube video on Jordan Love, and I believe in Jordan Love. I think as a dynasty asset, even right now, would be a good time to maybe buy him for pretty cheap because he's going to be cheap, and he's probably going to be the starter next year. I don't know if Rodgers is coming back next year based on everything that's going on. So I would maybe take a shot on Jordan Love.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, and absolutely, like, Aaron Rodgers probably agreed to come back because he wants all of his old friends back, like Randall Cobb, Davante Adams, like Aaron Jones. Like, he has his group ready for him, and he wants his old friend Randall Cobb to come back so that they can make that Super Bowl run. So this is going to be an exciting year in Green Bay and for fantasy managers as well.
Yeah, no, hey, breathe a sigh of relief. I'm sorry, Denver Broncos. You guys aren't going to get Aaron Rodgers, doesn't look like. So, good thing Locke's there. But anyway, let's move on. I don't want to make you all sad. Tariq Cohen starting the preseason on the NFL PUP list that came out recently. He's coming back from his ACL tear that he had week 3 last year. there's a lot of concern about Cohen taken away from Montgomery. David Montgomery's there. He finishes a running back one, and he does have good value. Are you more or less buying Montgomery with this news? Does this change anything? Does it really matter? Pup list early in the preseason, maybe it doesn't matter. What do you think about this?
Yeah, so it really wasn't surprising to still see that he is rehabbing and can't perform right now. But this does give Montgomery a higher floor while giving backup Damian Williams a shot at creating an even bigger role for himself as the change of pace back behind Monty. So I think that Cohen will be fine for the start of week 1, but you can't take anything for granted. This gives Damon Williams, he is right now the safer handcuff or the safer insurance policy to Montgomery over Cohen. Yeah. But I would still draft Cohen late in a best ball league because he has that ability. But Damien Williams looks a little safer right now.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like, as far as redrafts, those type of things, I get nervous about that. Damian had a legit year when he played for the Chiefs, and he had that Super Bowl year. Yeah. Obviously, he could have easily won Super Bowl MVP. And I think that's a value. I still think Montgomery's just getting underdrafted. Like, when you look at him, he's going in like the back end of the third round, and he finishes a running back one in single quarterback leagues. I'm smashing his ADP all day. Like, I love Montgomery, especially this year in redraft. I don't think he's a risk. Do you?
I don't think he's a risk. I think he's one of the safest running backs other than Chris Carson, that RB2 range. So, Kevin, I'm curious. We talked about this earlier. Would you take Montgomery over Carson right now with all these reports saying that he's going to get at least 20 carries a game, or would you take a Chris Carson?
I'm taking Montgomery. Okay. And that's weird. That's hard for me because I like Carson. Like, I've always been a Carson guy. Montgomery stayed healthy. Carson, there's always those risks that he's going to get injured, a little banged up. Sure. I actually think, and this is crazy, as long as we'll talk about Fields later. If Fields can start earlier, I think Montgomery is a very, very safe play. I don't know. I trust that offense a little bit more to run through Montgomery. Maybe they rely on him a little bit more. I think it's going to be close, but I just think Montgomery's going to stay healthy. And so that's my bet, is that he'll stay healthier over Carson.
Right. It is extremely close for me, but I still lean Carson because he's on a better offense. But like you said, that's a great point. The Bears offense will run through David Montgomery, whereas Carson is just a complementary piece. And then there's talk of Rashad Penny stepping up. So Montgomery has no competition. So I think I'm leaning your way, Kevin, like you're kind of talking me into taking Monty over Carson, but it's still very close for me.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to see where they're going right now in drafts and redraft leagues. I don't know necessarily the ADP where it's at. I believe it's got to be very close, probably third, fourth round in there. But I think I still lean Montgomery. And Cohen has never worried me. Like, Cohen's not someone that's ever, even last year, he never worried me. He's not in the same categories like Kareem Hunt. He's just not. Like, they're not going to be that same guy that they're there. So I'm all in on Montgomery in redraft. Smash the hell out of that ADP. I love it. Now, we do need to talk about this, which really has hurt Michael Thomas owners out there. Have been hurt for the last 2 years, it feels like. Had to have surgery. It looks like he didn't take the doctor's advice of coming back after the first visit. The doctor said, come look after a month. We'll see if we need to have surgery. He got the camp in June, had this. Now, be careful of clickbait headlines. There was a big clickbait thing about 6 to 8 weeks or 4, whatever it was. How long is he going to be out? He did have the surgery in June. So when we're thinking about where is he coming to come back at? What was your initial kind of reaction to Michael Thomas being out? And when do you think he's coming back? Because they do have a bye week 6. So I know we talked about that pre-show. Where are you at with Michael Thomas?
So as of today, 4for4 has Michael Thomas's ADP at 309, like he's being taken as a wide receiver 12, which was a value before the injury. But now let's reassess his redraft value. Latest reports, like you said, the Saints just put him on the PUP list. He's eligible to come off that PUP list anytime during camp. But if he has to stay on the PUP list going into the season, then he will be forced to miss at least 6 games. Like you said earlier, the Saints have a bye week at week 6, which would put him on track to return in week 8. If you're drafting right now, first off, why are you drafting so early? But secondly, I would stay far away from him. To give you guys some context, I had Michael Thomas in the high-end wide receiver 2 range with upside, but now I have him in the wide receiver 5 range behind guys like Michael Gallup, Corey Davis, and Jalen Waddle. He's in front of those wild card wideouts like a Devontae Parker, a Cole Beasley, Russell Gage, and Henry Ruggs. I'm personally staying far away, but I would understand if anyone wants to take him in the late rounds to see if he can come back mid-season, and if you have that IL stash, just to see if he does come back. But even when he's healthy enough to come back, he's going to have to get back in shape. He's going to, I'm staying away. Personally. I'm sorry, Kevin.
So I know you just shouted out like, why are you drafting so early? And this is going to show how degenerate I am. So I did a redraft. Draft yesterday. And
no way.
It was not really a home league. It was more of like it's like a school league where a bunch of teachers, but people that know fantasy, but we're doing it before school starts because we get so busy. So I do have some excuses, and my wife doesn't know about this league. So let's keep it from there. But Michael Thomas went at the 804. So I wanted to check and make sure. So I wanted to see for redraft purposes, he went at the 804. What is the 8th round too early for you, or where are you at there? Because that's still a starter. So technically you're waiting on him. So you're going to want to draft after him. And this was the guy, and I made sure I looked. So this guy got Calvin Ridley, Allen Robinson, Julio Jones, and DJ Moore. And then he drafted Michael Thomas late.
It sounded like he had other needs to address if he got all those wideouts that early. I mean, he's already stacked. Now now Michael Thomas is just a luxury pick. But in the 8th round, let's say we got a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, a wide receiver, and a tight end. I guess if you fill your roster, or you already have your 7 players of, foundation, I understand. But I would rather take healthy bodies that are going to help me now. In the 8th round is where you can find some gems in the 8th, 9th, and 10th round. Now, I would feel comfortable taking them in the 11th round or later, but I personally think that 8th round is a little too soon, but I get why you would want that upside in the second half of the season.
Yeah, and put in perspective. So I'm going to throw some names that got drafted after him, some wide receivers, not necessarily running backs, just wide receivers. Jarvis Landry, Antonio Brown, Rashad Bateman, Gallup, Jalen Waddle, and Tyler Boyd, and then Darnell Mooney. Out of all those guys, Jarvis maybe, Antonio. What can Antonio be? A lot of targets to be had thrown around there. But I love like Tyler Boyd, Darnell Mooney. Like those are guys I feel like are going to produce at least those first 7 weeks. Then you just figure it out on the waiver wire, right?
I agree. Absolutely. Yeah. I would definitely take Mooney over him. I would definitely take Landry over him. I think that he's being underrated right now. He is a solid PPR guy. I'm taking those healthy bodies over Michael Thomas. Now, I get the argument if you want to take Michael Thomas over a Jalen Waddle just because Waddle hasn't proven it yet, and he's with a quarterback in Tua who's a little bit volatile. We're not sure what we're getting. So it's like, okay, I'm going to go safe. I'm just going to stash MT. That's fine. But I would rather take the healthy bodies of Mooney, of Jarvis Landry, and all those guys that you said.
Yeah, I think it's risk and reward. I did see someone talk about this on the CBS Fantasy Podcast. They were talking about like, hey, you don't worry about, your league the first 6 weeks. You draft him, you stash him, and you hope that you hit on those other guys. I understand that sentiment, but you better hope that you hit, and you better have a pretty balanced team. Like that team I was talking about today, their running backs really suffer. Like when you're looking at their roster and what they have. They drafted Eckler in the first, and then after that, it was just nothing, like Mike Davis. So you really got to hope that those guys hit. I think there's a lot of risk to that. I understand a redraft. Sometimes it's about taking risk. So I get it. But you just got to be very careful with who you grab and how you do that. Now, as far as Dynasty goes, and I have him, and I would like everybody out there, all my listeners, to know that I have Cam Akers and Michael Thomas on a team in a Dynasty league. And so my week has not been great. And as far as Michael Thomas goes for me in Dynasty, you can't move him right now, unless some trades that I've seen him go for a 2023 first.
Fair.
I'm okay with if you can get a first for Michael Thomas at this point in his career, I probably would do it. Just to be 100% real with everybody out there. In my leagues, I can't get a first. I play with a lot of sharks. I play with a lot of guys that know what they're doing, and so it can be very difficult. I think best case scenario, I guess, for Michael Thomas for me is he comes back week 7, 8, does very well for 2 or 3 games, and then depending on what my team looks like, can I sell him?
Right.
To a contender, maybe a guy going for it, then you can get your first. That's, I think, the ideal situation. But obviously there's risk because if he doesn't play well, you're really not getting anything from him. Right now, I think his value is at a 2nd-round pick. And that's you can't get rid of Michael Thomas for a 2nd-round pick. And I don't know necessarily a player that you could get. I offered Michael Thomas for Darnell Mooney, and it got declined.
Really?
Yeah, in Dynasty.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So I went for it. I thought, hey, what the hell? And I added a little bit of something, and I was trying to get anything, and he declined it because of the Mooney news, because they're moving on. And so Michael Thomas's value is at a all-time just low. It's just an all-time low.
I'd say so. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my goodness. How the mighty have fallen, man. He was a wide receiver 1, and now you can't even trade him for Darnell Mooney. I mean, we like Darnell Mooney. I know that you are a Mooney truther, but I mean, it's Michael Thomas. I mean, that name value alone should garner at least a 1st-round pick. But oh my goodness, that's crazy.
But people are just scared from him from last year. What he looked like. He's going to be 28, going to be 29. Ageism is a real thing, and it's just one of those things where you have to look for what we're doing there. And now, the real question is, now I made a joke on Twitter. You can, where to follow me there. I said I got to mute the words Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill because I just can't do it anymore. Who's going to start, where that comes from. As far as we're concerned, now that Michael Thomas is out, so let's start with redraft. Let's go through their guys. Are you buying Kamara in the 1st round for redraft? Do you think he smashes? Are you okay with taking him?
So I actually like him a little bit better, just because I think that Sean Payton is going to manufacture touches for Kamara. So I would feel comfortable taking him in the top 5, if not the top 3, because I did have Saquon Barkley as my 3rd RB, but I have moved him down all the way to RB7 just because of all the reports coming out about the Giants playing it safe. Now I'm sure that reports are going to be extremely positive right before the season, which is going to make me vault him up. But right now, Alvin Kamara is extremely safe, and I think that he's even safer and has a higher floor with this news of Michael Thomas being out for at least a few weeks into the season.
Yeah, we did. I did a little bit of research. We did a little video on this. Kamara, when Michael Thomas was out last year, he averaged 7.9 receptions on 9.1 targets. So for 73 yards receiving per game. Now that was with Breeze. Right. So when we looked at the stats and the splits, you got to be very careful with that. But when he was out, in that time that he was out, he had in 7 games, he had 84 attempts for 455 yards rushing and 4 rushing touchdowns to go along with 55 receptions, 514 yards, and 2 touchdowns. You could argue Alvin Kamara was the best player in the NFL last year when Michael Thomas was out. And so I'm smashing the hell out of him in redrafts. I think you have to. Does it matter for you who starts, if it's Jameis or Taysom? Because I know that can change things. Maybe.
I would feel more comfortable if Jameis Winston starts because I know that he's going to throw the ball and he loves to throw the ball, and Taysom Hill is more of a runner. But what's funny is that as my starting quarterback, I like Taysom Hill better in my quarterback slot each week than I would a Jameis Winston. Just because of his rushing floor. We love those rushing floor quarterbacks. But if Jameis Winston starts, that vaults up everyone on the Saints. Whereas it just vaults up Taysom Hill's value. If he starts, Winston starts, then everyone's value goes up. Kamara goes up, Callaway goes up, Deonta Harris value, Adam Troutman's value, everyone on the Saints value goes up because Jameis Winston is a gunslinger. Now I do worry about Jameis Winston kind of dialing it back. He's not going to be like he is not going to be like Brett Favre-esque on the Saints because that's not what Sean Payton wants from him. So I think that he'll probably dial back his gunslinger mentality if he starts, but he'll still be a lot better for all the Saints receivers than a Taysom Hill would be.
Yeah, no, and when you look at I like how you made that. I like how you brought up that point about Taysom being he's a true QB1-ish in fantasy perspective. Like he could finish easily at QB12 and be a solid starter. But it is true. Like I want Jameis if I have all those other positional players. Like I want Jameis. I want Jameis out there. You brought up a couple guys that I do want to, talk about. Tre'Quan Smith, and I like to do the splits without Michael Thomas just to kind of give us an idea. Between week 2 and 8 last year, he totaled 25 catches on 33 targets for 301 yards, and he had an 80 to 90% snap share. So he was out there, and he was there, and those are solid numbers, but they're not numbers that like pop to me. Right. Like they're not like, oh my gosh, they're out there. Are you on Tre'Quan Smith at all in redraft or anything? Because inevitably it's going to get bumped up, right?
So Tre'Quan Smith is presumably the wide receiver 1, but that doesn't mean much to me after averaging 3.6 targets last season. Still, like you said, Kevin, he was on the field a ton, 80 to 90% snaps. I mean, he was out there. He had the opportunity. He is looking at a bump in targets this season with MT out for at least a few more weeks. I see that 3.6 targets he averaged last season most likely doubling. So I can definitely see him averaging around 7 to 8 targets per game, which definitely puts him in the wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 range. So I would definitely take him in like the later rounds, like the 10th, 11th, or 12th round, and see if he does develop. Whoever starts, he is the wide receiver 1 there.
Yeah, and so they also have Marquez Callaway. Callaway, he totaled 19 catches on 25 targets for 202 yards in the games that Thomas missed. And 4 or 5 of those games, his snap share was only around 70%. I'm actually a little bit more worried about Callaway, I think, than Smith. Smith's a big play guy, though. Like, I think Tre'Quan Smith's that 3 catches, 80 yards touchdown. And if Jameis is there, that's perfectly doable. Like, he could have that. Callaway just didn't show much when he was out there. And that's, I think, what worries me the most. Adam Troutman's been, and I want to talk to you about Troutman because Troutman's someone that everybody has been that's like their new thing. It was Cole Kmet, and then the Bears just keep signing tight ends out of nowhere. Like they just keep grabbing dudes. And now Cole Kmet train is kind of, the hype's gone. Now it's Adam Troutman. Last year he 15 passes on 16 targets. He had 171 yards and a touchdown. Nothing like that really smashes out of you. We both know that ADP is going to just jump up for Adam Troutman, especially at the tight end position. And I haven't seen it much. He was going as tight end 20, but that's probably – you think he'll go above – like you think he'll get in that tight end 12 to 14 range before we start the season?
If Jameis Winston is named the starting quarterback, then yes, he will. Okay. He will definitely bump up to that tight end, even 10 to 14 range. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Just the hype around him. He's 6'5". He's new. He's 24 years old. He's very young. But if Taysom Hill starts, then I'm not drafting him. I'm staying far away.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the reality of it, right?
Right.
And that's why redraft is good for you guys, because if you're playing redraft, you can wait. Like, you can just wait, and just wait to see how the camp turns out. I actually think that battle is going to be fun to watch, who's going to win that battle. But I could realistically, can't you see, that offense and Sean Payton, those guys, just using Taysom in different ways to where it's almost like a wildcat situation where it's going to screw all of our fantasy teams?
I could definitely see that. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, he's been doing that even when Breeze was there. Like he would show up randomly. Oh, there's the wide receiver from BYU. Like it's like, oh, what in the world is happening right now? So yeah, I mean, even if Jameis starts, yeah, I think that Hill gets a ton of run anyway.
Yeah. No, I agree. As far as dynasty goes, for some of those guys, I don't know. I mean, I know they just picked up Chris Hogan, and people making jokes that he's always open. He's there. I don't see him being a relevant fantasy thing yet. Like, I just don't. Last year in the Jets, he played 5 games. He had 26 targets. There was really nothing there, especially in that Jets roster where they needed a receiver and they just didn't have anything. Mm-hmm. So I'm out on that. As far as dynasty goes, like Troutman would be a good sell high for me right now, especially if Jameis gets named, because there's no – there's nothing in Trautman that makes me think he's a tight end 1 through 5. And if I don't have a tight end 1 through 5, a guy that can finish in the top 5, I don't care. Like I'll just keep punting it. And I'm not wasting the draft capital on him. So that is, that's the Michael Thomas fault. I'm hoping for my fantasy sake that he is healthy and can come back, because my contending team with him and Akers on it is no longer contending. It is already plummeting, and it's only July 27th. Don't you love Dynasty? This is the fun.
It hurts. It hurts, man. But good luck, Kevin. I really hope for a speedy recovery, and you and I both have Cam Akers on our team, so I'll be praying they're right there with you, buddy.
I'm gonna be figuring out some witch doctor stuff to get that Achilles there. Now, what the other issue that we want to kind of talk about, because I think it goes along with this, and as a person who loves sports and hates this talk and hates this kind of stuff, the vaccine issue is a real thing. We've seen the new NFL rule, and we've actually just seen it in training camp today. We'll talk about it. But if you're not vaccinated, there's different rules for you. You're going to have to sit out 10 days. You have to take 2 negative tests. If you miss a game, because it's forfeited, you lose a game check. Like, these are real issues now that are going to affect fantasy squads. And the reason why, I mean, even the Vikings offensive line coach just got let go by the Vikings because he wasn't vaccinated. We've had other people do that. And I don't know if you saw the news today, Gus Edwards is out for 10 days because he tested positive for COVID. He's out for 10 days, which means he does not have the vaccine. So now people know he doesn't have the vaccine. Now, are you, like, when you look at these guys and you're looking at what they're saying, are you drafting them? And like, also, when we do guys, so Gus Edwards, DeAndre Hopkins has come out and talked about this. He said he was going to retire, but we all know he wasn't going to retire. Leonard Fournette even came out and said all these things. Mm-hmm. So, like, do we consider vaccination status and depth behind those guys maybe in our drafts?
So, first of all, I just saw something that said that Ron Rivera, the head coach of the Washington football team, is, quote, frustrated about how many players on his team are not vaccinated.
Yeah.
That tells me that probably most of the NFL players are probably not vaccinated. But, the only ones to speak up on Twitter were DeAndre Hopkins and Leonard Fournette. So we will focus on them. If a player publicly doesn't have the vaccine, it affects the way I draft slightly. We all saw that infamous Hopkins tweet where he basically questioned his future in the NFL. Later, though, he tweeted, quote, "By the way, I got 9 more years in me. Y'all have a good day." So that tells me that he's probably going to get the shot, or, he's going to play, and he's not going to let anything stand in his way. It's still a guessing game on my part, but I'm drafting Hopkins as a wide receiver 1 who could finish as the number 1 wide receiver overall in this fast-paced Arizona Cardinals offense. Now, Leonard Fournette, he tweeted out vaccine, can't do it, but quickly deleted that tweet and came out last Sunday and said that he will, quote, consider the COVID-19 vaccine. So it honestly feels like both Hopkins and Fournette are fine and should be drafted where they have been, which, is around the RB4. Leonard Fournette is being drafted in the 7th round as the RB28. DeAndre Hopkins is being drafted as a wide receiver 4 around the 203. I am extremely fine with both of those ADP prices despite the vaccine issues.
Yeah, I agree with that, but it also makes me selfishly excited about my Rojo shares, right? Shouldn't it? Like, sure. Hey, you know what? If he doesn't get the vaccine, he gets COVID, he's going to be out for 10 days. That could be 2 games where I get Rojo. Hey, hell yeah, Rojo, you're going to be RB1 and you're going to put up points for my team. I think these are just things you have to consider. Like Dobbins right now. Everybody's worried about Gus Edwards. I love Gus Edwards. I have Gus Edwards in a lot of best ball leagues and a lot of redraft or even dynasty leagues where I thought he was a very solid, like Kareem Hunt style player. But if he gets COVID and he has to continue to do this, now you got Dobbins, who could be a running back 1. And now you're looking at Dobbins ADP, which is what, in the 3rd round or 3rd-ish round. Now you're looking at a legit running back one now because of Gus Edwards just not getting a vaccine. So I think that's a real thing. I mean, Dobbins is going in the third round, ADP's 32, running back 16. Now you're looking at a guy that in a run heavy offense because of this vaccine thing. So like, I think it really does have a precedent in our teams, and we don't want to talk about it, but it's real.
Sure. I don't want to rain on the Dobbins parade, but once you do get COVID, it is harder to get it twice just because your body does build up those antibodies and everything. Yeah. But hey, I am not a scientist. I don't claim to be one, so, who knows, like it could happen, but I feel like if Gus gets it now, he's most likely getting it over with, and he'll be fine for the season, but you never know. So yes, I would look at Dobbins as a slight upgrade for sure, but I wouldn't get too excited there, Kevin.
Hey, you know what? Listen, I'm just glad you knew the word antibodies, because I was going to try to help you, but as a history teacher, I could not think of it either. And then you said it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it is. But I think it's just something. I think it's just something to think about. Like, hey, this is a real thing. It's going to affect our teams, and you might. Last year it did too. We talked about it. It was kind of luck last year. We saw movements. We saw the COVID stuff. This year, I think it's going to be bigger. Just in terms of like, hey, how long are they out? Game checks matter. Look at depth and look at those guys. But essentially, though, hey, that's the NFL news going around, and we appreciate you guys listening to that and going through. We'll be doing that every episode now. We're back. We finally got some content that we can talk about, real NFL news and where we're going and drafting and going through. But our next segment, we are going to be talking about rookie quarterbacks and redraft ADP and where we essentially think that they're going to start in. So let's go to the rookie quarterbacks. And with the first rookie quarterback that we're going to be talking about is Justin Fields, Chicago quarterback. Matt Nagy came out today, and I hate coach talk. It's been coach talk all week this week, and it's killing me, Jacob. I cannot stand it. I got all these guys. We're going to talk about it later. But Matt Nagy came out today, and he was asked about Justin Fields starting, and he didn't say no this time. He said, we're going to evaluate the quarterbacks as we go. So obviously Fields is starting to make an impression over Dalton, which he should, because if anybody watched Andy Dalton last season, you should know that Andy Dalton is not the quarterback that he once was. What is your opinion of Fields in redraft? So his ADP redraft right now, just so Jacob can talk about him, 1103, and he's QB 16, which he is the second highest quarterback taken right now in redraft of the rookie quarterbacks. So what do you feel like Fields, and then where's your guess is when he might actually get on that field?
All right, so I do respect that coach talk, because Fields must be doing something otherworldly that is just showing up Andy Dalton and what he can do, or lack thereof, in this point of his career. So I still think that the Bears give Andy Dalton the courtesy of starting him out at least for week 1, maybe week 2. So let's look at the Chicago Bears' schedule. They're at the Rams, and then they face the Bengals and the Lions, Raiders, Packers, Bucks, Niners, and Steelers. Dalton is going to start week 1 against the Rams and week 2 against the Bengals for sure. I feel like, the Bears want to give Andy Dalton his revenge game against his old team, But I predict that the Bears will probably be 1-1 or even 0-2 and set Justin Fields up for success in his NFL debut in week 3 at home against the Lions. Book it.
All right. Well, I think, did they play the Browns week 3 though? Are we looking at the right schedule?
Did I get it wrong? I'm sorry. I got to fact check myself.
Week 3 is at the Browns, but week 4 is the Lions. So
sorry about that. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so
that's all right.
So let's rewind. Okay. So Andy Dalton starts the first 3 weeks, setting up Justin Fields for success in week 4 against the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, we'll cut that out. But what I was thinking is, I think the Lions is the perfect week, right? Like, I think you're right. And to be honest, the Rams have one of the best defenses in football. Obviously, they lost their defensive coordinator to the Chargers, head coach now. But I still think the Rams are going to come to play. You don't want to throw out Justin Fields against the Rams. I don't think that's not going to be a good for success for all that stuff. The Bengals, yeah, they could, but I think they're going to give Dalton that next shot. And then the Browns have one of the best defenses in the league too. One of the best pass rushing defenses in the league as well. So when you're looking at that schedule, like, oh my God, do they want to throw it out there? But realistically, like you mentioned, they could be 0-3. And then heading into that, now Lions and then Raiders. That could be, hey, let's go against the Lions, win. Go against the Raiders, win. Now we're 2-3. Right. Now we look a little bit better in that big game against Green Bay and Tampa. Like their schedule is pretty tough this year. So when you're looking at that schedule, you're like, okay, what fits him well? Right. I still think that he's the most talented quarterback on that roster, though. So like it's going to be hard to keep him off the field, especially if he has some preseason games where you're like, oh wow, like that kid can throw, and that kid actually does better for that offense.
I agree, and it's almost similar to the Russell Wilson starting over Matt Flynn. You know, but I just don't think that the Bears want to rattle his confidence by throwing him out to the Lions' den, like you said, or to this amazing Rams defense who is probably going to tear him apart, or whoever starts there. So yeah, I think even if Fields shows up in the preseason, I think they take the careful approach and build up his confidence by starting him in week 4 against the Lions.
Yeah, and that's fair. What do you think of his ADP redraft? Are you okay with it? Because he's going as QB 16 in the 11th round. Like, do you feel like that's a good – because you're essentially getting your backup probably, unless you take him and then take someone later. Like, I'd be interested to see, like, maybe take Fields and then later take, like, a Derek Carr. You start Derek Carr in the beginning and then you wait for Fields to be there. Would that be a strategy you kind of roll with, or are you okay with that ADP?
Yeah, so if we look at the quarterbacks being taken after Fields, it's Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins, Tua, Trey Lance, and Carson Wentz. It's all streamers after Fields. So he's a very low-risk pick in the later rounds of draft, and he has the clearest path to start. So taking him later in your draft could be a worthwhile investment for your fantasy team with all the weapons that surround Justin Fields. I think he is definitely going to get that nod in week 4 at the least.
Yeah, no, and I think so. I think it's not a tough risk. It's an easy buy for me in terms of this format. Like, he's someone that I'm okay drafting early because I think that, not to tip my hand a little bit, but between all these guys, I think he's probably the quarterback that starts the second fastest, or actually the first fastest of the guys that aren't going to automatically start. But the guys that are there, like, I would grab Fields. I'm okay with that. And I just love his talent. I love what they're going to do with Mooney. And I love that ability with Allen Robinson there. I think that he has great RPOs. He's going to do great with Montgomery. Like, that's all fine and dandy. But when we're talking about, and in redraft leagues too, how it is. Like, the fourth week means nothing. Like, if you lose the first couple of games of your fantasy league, that doesn't mean anything. Right. He could lead you to that next promised land of those wins in your fantasy leagues. Yep. You have anything else left with Fields?
I was just going to say I am 100% with you. Justin Fields is the first quarterback I would take a risk on in the later rounds of draft because he does have the clearest path to start that's not already starting.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So let's go to the next guy, and I have a feeling that I'm going to just be sad this whole year with him, and that's Trey Lance. Coach news today, coach speak. We need to have a sound for that. Probably like Mario dying. Coach speak today. He said there's no quarterback competition. There's Jimmy G's our starter. Right. And listen, they did not waste all that draft capital to move up in the draft to start Jimmy G the whole year. I don't believe it. I don't believe it, Jacob. I don't believe it. Okay. But they might do it. Like, they just might do it. He's going as redraft ADPs the 12th round, QB 19, so he's going a little later. What is your opinion of the Lance situation? Where do you think he's going to start? And do you believe the coach speak?
So I truly believe that the 49ers want to sit Trey Lance the whole 2021 season, a la Patrick Mahomes. Even if this is their hope, though, I think that Lance will make starts this year one way or another. Jimmy G has missed 23 of 48 games the last 3 seasons. So he is not the healthiest guy he is always hurt. So I just think it's only a matter of time before Trey Lance makes starts. With Jimmy G's injury history, Lance will all but make starts this year, but there is a perfect world where Jimmy G stays healthy all season. And if that's the case, I don't see him relinquishing that starting role, letting Lance sit the whole year and just watch, and just grow and just ball out maybe in a week 18, just like Patrick Mahomes did. But if we are making our predictions, the 49ers face the Lions, the Eagles, the Packers, the Seahawks, and Cardinals before their bye week in week 6. They could easily go 2-0, followed by 3 straight losses. 49ers go into the bye week at 2-3 and officially make the switch to Trey Lance before the Colts come to town in week 7. Now, Kevin, did I get that schedule right?
Yeah, you got the schedule right, and you picked the game that we always look for bye weeks for these quarterbacks, because we always think like if they're going to make a change, they'll do it during the bye weeks, so they get 2 weeks of prepared. They can get the game script down. These dudes will know the first 50 plays going to get called, essentially like, hey, this is the game. This is what our script is going to be. Here's the offense. Here's what we need you to do. And we see it time and time. The NFL is just it's a league where it's just a copycat league, but a lot of teams just do it that way. That's just what they do. I like that week 6, like bye week, and then, okay, let's go against the Colts. I could see that. My guess was around week 7. So Indianapolis Colts in there. But it really I think it just depends. I think the 2 biggest games of the Seahawks, like that stretch between Green Bay Seahawks and the Cardinals, is going to be huge. Like, if they go 2-0 right away and they beat the Lions and Eagles, then I'm a little bit more worried. I think if they lose those 3 straight games and then 2 divisional games, then we're talking like fans are like, hey, you got to put Lance in. We got to see what he can do. There's going to be a little bit of pressure there. Now, if they come out of that 3-2, I could realistically see them maybe rolling with Jimmy again. And if Indianapolis comes in, depending on what Indianapolis season looks like, then we're working at maybe they start in week 9 against the Cardinals. Maybe if that's when the second half of that division, okay, let's see if he can kind of pull us out of this, and they're 3-3 or whatever. I do think that he is. Everybody knows he was my QB2 coming into this class, and I love Trey Lance. I love his talent. I think he's going to be a hell of a fantasy asset. He's just got to get on that field. I don't believe their coach, though. Like, I do not believe Shanahan. I think that he knows what he has with Lance. Yeah. He's going to try to insulate Lance and help him. And so I could see maybe week 7 being that here. But, again, his ADP is, at QB 19, I don't mind taking a shot on him. Like, that to me, you might have to wait a little longer, but because of that extra week, depending on what fantasy leagues do, you could still have that be in the playoffs. I know a lot of people play in 10-man leagues, and they do the top 6. And so then you're really looking at like, okay, I can just get in and be there. I like Lance. I just think that he's getting a little overdrafted probably in redraft, a little bit based on where he's going to probably start.
Yeah. So Trey Lance is going ahead of guys like Carson Wentz, Deshaun Watson, who may not even play, or at least the first half of the season, and Ben Roethlisberger, which is honestly more than fair. Like Justin Fields, I would rather take a quarterback like Fields or Lance late in my draft for that potential upside and just stash them away. Trey Lance's rushing upside is too great, and Jimmy G's injury history is even greater. So I would definitely grab Lance late and stash him as long as you can, but I would grab Fields first.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'd grab Fields too in redraft. I would probably grab Lance in Dynasty just because I like him more. But you did bring up Big Ben, and you know me, I'm going to go off script a little bit. So I don't understand Big Ben's ADP, because the Deontay Johnson, Claypool, and Juju are getting drafted wide receiver 23 to 30. So they're getting drafted as a wide receiver 2 to 3. And then Big Ben's getting drafted as a quarterback 23, 24. So either Big Ben is getting undervalued or the receivers are getting overvalued. Which one is it, Jacob?
It's just, okay, so Roethlisberger is back for his 17th season. He's 39 years old. He's not look good last year.
He's skinny now.
Oh, okay.
Did you see the pictures? Did you see the pictures?
I did see it, and he does look slimmer. I'll tip my hat to him.
He's on that Mediterranean diet that my wife's making me eat now. So he's losing that weight. He's on that.
What is Mediterranean diet? Is that like shawarmas?
I don't know. My doctor made me do it, and my wife's now telling me I have to be on some Mediterranean diet. So I'm eating a lot of vegetables, a lot of legumes.
Okay.
That's what Big Ben's on. He looks healthy. Like,
okay.
I just don't understand the ADP, Jacob. Explain it to me.
What's funny is that, okay, so I don't like how he looked last year. Yes, he does look slimmer, but his arm just was not there. He looked awful. But what's funny is that all of his wide receivers have such high ADPs, like you said.
Yeah.
That's just because I think that they're going to just create extremely short passes to mask his arm, like quick slant to Deontay Johnson, to Juju, to Claypool, like throwing screens to Claypool like they did last year. Like, they're going to mask everything about Big Ben. And now they have a Najee Harris to take off that load as well, because Najee, as we all know, is a 3-down back, so he can just dump it off to Najee. He can hand it off to Najee 20 times. I don't think that Roethlisberger is going to throw as much as we think. So like the point that you're making, Kevin, I think that the Steelers wideouts are just being ranked way too high. I do think that Deontay Johnson is the safest guy here, but all the others are just wild cards to me, which is crazy that all of them are so high and Big Ben is so low. It doesn't make sense, and I totally agree with you, Kevin. It's weird.
It's weird, right? Like, I just saw that ADP today, and when I was doing the my prep, and I know people don't think I prep, but I do prep out there, guys. I'm here for you guys. And I was looking at it, I was like, man, QB 23 is a tough ADP for me. Like, I feel like he should be QB 15, 16, somewhere in there, depending on what you think of his value is going to be. He did finish his QB 15 last year. And I think that 1 year removed from that elbow surgery, we could see a legitimately top 15 guy again. In that offense. So, like, I understand what you're saying. I thought that was interesting. I'm sorry we got off track a little bit. Let's go to this kid. And this kid who is supposed to be the number 2 pick, number 3 pick, number 3 pick in the NFL draft, and then he dropped all the way to 15. And that's Mac Jones. Mac Jones' ADP right now is 1809. That's his rounds. And then he's going as QB 33. So he's getting drafted way late. I don't know what the hell to do with Mac Jones, because I don't know what Bill Belichick is going to do, because no one knows ever what Bill Belichick's going to do. That's true. Cam Newton last year didn't look great. I know the excuses were COVID. I know the excuses were all this. Like, I don't know, because he didn't have COVID the year before. He didn't look very good. His arm looks a little bad. Like, I don't necessarily where that's going to be. I know they built that offense around them. McDaniels is one of the best offensive coordinators. I know as a Denver fan, you might not like him as a head coach. But what is Mac Jones to you? Like, what is our opinion of Mac?
So I just want to preface it by saying Mac is far less talented than the first two players. He is far less talented than Fields and Lance. I just wanted to get that out there. Saying that Bill loves him because he fits that mold of a game manager who will run the Patriots system. Mac is the only one out of the 3 quarterbacks that we have already talked about that I give a fighting chance to start in week 1. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and call my shot and say that Mac Jones proves himself a couple games into the preseason and earns that starting job outright before week 1.
Wow, look at that. That's a shot right there. Look at this is going to be your claim to fame right here. I can see it, because Belichick is so damn I hate him as a fantasy manager. I love him as a coach. Like, he's obviously one of the best coaches in the NFL. But he doesn't go by narratives. He doesn't go by, He doesn't say, hey, you've earned it, Cam. You've been a starter in this league. You took your team to the Super Bowl. He doesn't do that thing. He goes and says, hey, this is where, I'm going to put the best person in the league. I did an entire video on Jones and how he fits the system on Patriots system. And he does. He fits everything that Bill loves and everything that he does. And we could realistically see them coming out. They play Miami, and that Dolphins defense is, I think, a tad bit overrated, but they're still pretty good. We saw last year that they knew how to deal with it. So to me, I think that could be a possibility here. Like, hey, we saw how they dealt with Cam last year. He didn't have a great game. Then the Jets, Saleh is going to be there. Improved defense, maybe just an improved team. New Orleans Saints, gosh, who knows about that? Their schedule is a little weird. I'm not going to go with you. Like, that's a risk taker there. I actually said, when I looked at their schedule and where they were at, I said the Houston Texans week 5. So I was looking at their schedule. You know, if they go against Miami, New York, Saints, Buccaneers, and then maybe the Texans, it's no bye week in between there because they don't have a bye until late week 14. So realistically, maybe that'd be an easy team to play against. The Texans, put them in there. I know their defense is actually not that bad in Houston, and maybe they go. My worst case scenario is he puts them against my Cowboys week 6, and I know it'll happen. Our bad secondary, Mac Jones will look like an MVP of the league, and it'll just hurt my soul. But your scenario is right too. And I honestly, though, isn't there a scenario where Cam just starts the whole season? Like he just plays good enough to where, hey, Cam just plays okay, and then they go 8-9. 9-8, and they just that's what it is. They are.
There is that scenario, but I don't think that Cam Newton can stay healthy. He's like a Jimmy G. Like he just cannot stay healthy, especially in this point of his career. So I think that Mac makes starts no matter what. But yes, in a perfect world, probably Bill wants to run Cam Newton into the ground before putting Mac Jones into the fold. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, but I don't trust Cam to stay healthy.
No, me neither. And I don't trust his shoulder. I don't trust his arm. I think it's just not there. And I love Cam. Like, I'm the biggest Cam supporter in the world because he does a lot of off the field stuff, his charity stuff. He was one of the best college quarterbacks to ever play college football for a season. He's a good dude that gets shit on by a lot of people for a lot of dumb reasons because he has personality and he dresses, whatever. I have a Marvel shirt on. Like, he dressed weird. He does those type of things. Like, I'm not there. I just don't think his arm's there anymore. And I think Bill knows that. Or they wouldn't have took Mac 15. Like, they would have moved on. Now, we didn't talk about Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson just for the fact that they're both starting. So they're both going to be starting. We know that. I do want to mention, Lawrence is right now is QB 14. Do you think that's overdraft? So he's gone around 10. Obviously the first rookie quarterback off the board. Do you think that is an overdraft, or are you okay with Lawrence being your QB1 on a redraft team?
So I've done a lot of research on this. I currently have Trevor Lawrence as my quarterback 15 behind guys like Joe Burrow and Matthew Stafford. Lawrence doesn't boast the upside of Fields and Lance, but Lawrence is a day one starter who already looks like a poised veteran. I was talking to you the other day, Kevin, and you said it feels like Lawrence has been in the league for like 3 years. And it really does feel like that. So I think that Trevor also offers sneaky rushing upside, which could give him a weekly decent floor. Lawrence has the weapons around him to succeed, such as a DJ Shark, Marvin Jones, Laviska Shenault, and Travis Etienne, along with a solid running back in James Robinson. He has a great team around him, which should keep him in the top 15 each week, especially playing behind a Jaguars defense that gave up a second worst 30.8 points per game last season. So he might have to play catch up all season, which is great for fantasy.
Yeah, no, I like him. And realistically, let's say you do take him as your QB1. That just means you can load up your other spots. Like, you can basically going to get 9 quality starters, 9 quality starters. Mm-hmm. And then you have Lawrence getting a safe floor of QB 13, 14 every week, which depending on the league and depending on your settings. But I do like that you said he has a rushing upside, because he does. He's not slow. Yeah. Like, he actually will be very good. And as someone who scouted him in Debbie and knows this stuff, especially with his rushing floor, it's going to be fine. Like, realistically, I think he's pretty safe. Now, I have seen some people draft him a little higher than I like. Like, QB 14 is probably where I would like him, like in that round 10. If you're going a little higher for me, I'm not there. The only other guy is, like, would you rather have Matt Ryan or Trevor Lawrence? Because that's basically where they're going around. Like, because who would you rather have in redraft?
So I would honestly rather have Trevor Lawrence just because of his upside, because he can rush. Matt Ryan doesn't offer any sort of rushing upside. I know that the Falcons defense is also bad, and that's why that Matt Ryan is only 2 spots behind Trevor Lawrence. Like they are in that same tier. But I would rather go with Lawrence because he's younger, because he can actually get you some rushing yards. And I think that, it might be a hot take, but I think overall he has better weapons than Matt Ryan. So I think I'm going to lean towards Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, and I want to address the question about Urban Meyer that people bring up, like, should we worry about him and should we be scared of Urban Meyer as a coach? Because I know that Marshall Faulk came out recently and he talked about, hey, this is a warning, Trevor Lawrence. None of Urban's quarterbacks that he developed were good in the NFL. The thing is, to me, first of all, the thing about developing is, like, Lawrence is pretty. I don't want to say he's who he is, but his development is basically what we like to see. Like that's kind of his development. Like we don't need Urban to develop Lawrence. Like he is a very good quarterback. I love his weapons that he has, and if you look at like how he's going to utilize ETN, I think ETN's going to get a ton of targets in the passing game. And so when you're looking at how they're going to use those weapons around him, they're the perfect fit. Laviska, he's going to be great in the slot, and so is Marvin Jones. Both those guys are going to be interchangeable. Look at what Paris Campbell did at Ohio State. Look at what these slot guys did. Terry McLaurin, like all these guys that did all these things, we're going to see that go into this offense. Plus, we're going to have Trevor Lawrence. Give me that all day, especially with what you're saying with Matt Ryan. I think in a weird way, like you're right, I think the Jaguars have better weapons than the Falcons. I do think that Ridley's the best weapon, but I think after that, Pitts, I'm not a Russell Gage guy. I'm not these other guys that are popping in there. And I just would rather have Lawrence and the ability to scheme ETN and the ability to scheme Laviska. Like, give me that upside all day. And then Zach Wilson, what do you think of Zach going at QB 27? Like, he is that worth like are you going to waste a roster spot on Zach? I listen to you because you're the quarterback guru for redraft. So are you wasting a roster spot with him, or do you feel like it's okay to grab him as your QB2 because he's going to start right away? So anyway you have him, you're going to have a starter.
All right. So Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence are the only rookie starting quarterbacks guaranteed to start in week 1 as of this episode.
Yeah.
He's super young at 21 and stands at a decent 6'2", but the big thing is that Adam Gase is gone, which bodes well on his potential development even early on. He has some weapons to play with, such as Corey Davis, rookie Elijah Moore, Denzel Mims, and your boy Kevin Keelan Cole. He's set up for success. There's a reason why he's going undrafted in one quarterback leagues, but I can see him being a solid streaming option when he plays the Falcons, the Bengals, the Texans, and Jaguars during the season. But other than that, I'm only drafting him in super flex redraft leagues as a backup.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's my only starter in a league that I'm in. I think, to the credit, I think Zach Wilson is getting a little, I think that is a little disrespectful in terms of like, I think his ADP, like, would you rather have Ryan Fitzpatrick or Zach then for redraft?
I would rather have Ryan Fitzpatrick just because he has been in the league. He has proven it, and he has awesome weapons. Zach Wilson, I like his talent. I like his potential, but he just hasn't proven it yet. But I am willing to trust him as a streamer in great spots this season.
That's fair. I think that's a fair point. I think he's a streamable option depending on where you're at, depending on how big your leagues are. It really depends on that roster size. Because if you're, 22, 23 rounds, you might be able to snag him late and just hope that he's a solid QB2 and you have him there. A guy that I want to shout out is Elijah Moore. I think he's got a great ADP right now, 184. Yeah. He's going as wide receiver 63. Like, I like that. All the news out of camp sounds like he's having a hell of a camp so far. He had a great rookie mini camp. It seems like everybody loves him in that they're going to manufacture targets for him, and he's going to earn those targets. So give me Elijah Moore all day at his ADP.
So I'm curious, Kevin, what are your dynasty thoughts on Zach Wilson? Let's say that one of our listeners has the 108 pick in their Dynasty Superflex League and knows that they won't get Lawrence, Lance, or Fields, but could grab Zach Wilson. Should they feel confident taking Wilson or choose the best player available?
I'm taking Wilson in a Superflex League because, you don't pass on the number 2 pick in a Superflex League if he falls that far. Like, to be and I've done this, and so to be perfectly fair to all the listeners, everybody out there, in a 16-team league, in a Superflex 16-team league, which is a monster of a league where quarterbacks are valued, he dropped all the way to me with the 109 on a team that I won 2 years ago, and I lost CMC, so I was competing and I wasn't all of a sudden. CMC, thank you. But he fell to 109. And everybody in the league was pissed because I figured I was going to have to draft Mac Jones. That's who I thought I was going to have to draft. So now I have I have Wilson. I'm okay with that. I think at the 108 to the 110, that's a very good value for a kid that's going to start right away. An improved offense, Robert Saleh being there, Elijah Moore, they're going to have better weapons. I think Michael Carter's getting slept on a little bit. I think he's an okay asset. They still could draft a running back next year or look for one. I like it in Dynasty. I don't mind him at that. And with the quarterback turnover and what we see with quarterbacks every year, especially next year, I mean, realistically, we could see like 6 to 7 teams needing a starting quarterback.
True that.
That changes the landscape. So I'm on the Wilson board, which is weird because I wasn't. It's funny how Devy works because you look at these prospects and over time your opinions change and then they get drafted by somebody and then you look like, okay, I want this guy. I actually like this. So like a guy like Rashad Bateman and Wilson were two guys that like I wasn't very high on in the pre-draft process in Devy. And now that their situations have changed and who they're around, I'm like, yeah, I'll smash that buy all day. Like that's just value to me.
Love it. Love it.
So we're going to go through there. We went through all the news, Aaron Rodgers being back, Tariq Cohen, Michael Thomas, vaccines. We went through all the rookie quarterbacks. Jacob gave his reputation is on the line, Mac Jones out there, that Mac Jones is going to start week 1 of the NFL season. How do you feel about your reputation being on the line there, Jacob? You proud of that?
All I got to say is, Mac Jones, please show up. Please just run that system and flatter the heck out of Bill Belichick and win that job so that I can keep my job.
Yeah, we got to keep him around here in the Triple Play. So we appreciate everybody listening. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If not, if you're on the podcast, please download us. Let us know how we're doing. Leave that rating. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.